Humanoids, welcome back to the Two Left Feet, the unofficial Your Party podcast. It's September the 10th, 2025. I'm your host, Dafydd Vaughan, and this is the stinking episode, the really smelly episode of the Two Left Feet. It is the most putrid one. And to start off this most putrid, stinky affair, all I have to do is sing to thee, sing to you all. Oh, Mandy, you were best mates with the pedo with an island. Now you're peering into yet another corruption allegation. Oh, Mandy. And with that, without further ado, let me please welcome you to my co-host. He's the co-host with the most. He's the legal beagle. He is the consigliere of the Two Left Feet. Please welcome former councillor Jabez Oakes. Jabez, hello, how are you this week?
I'm all right. Can I immediately disassociate myself with the singing song at the beginning of the podcast? I don't think I've ever had to say that phrase before.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? I think in the 5 minutes before we started recording, I think that was a great start to possibly a great song. I mean, absolutely.
See how the song develops.
Yes, I mean, well, absolutely, because this week we've got a load of things to talk about, and no shipbuilding this week, as we noticed from PMQs. So yeah, we're recording this after PMQs on Wednesday, 10th of September 2025. We have both watched and observed PMQs today, and then we've gone and started recording this podcast as we did last week, and hopefully in several weeks to come. Differences with this week is that we are not in the same location. Are we, Jay?
No, we're not.
So if Arthur has a problem with Jabez's volumes this week, it is not my fault. Jabez is not in an environment that I can control for sound. And actually, while we're recording, Jay, just have a little conversation into the microphone, because I am looking at your levels as you're talking. Just say something.
Hello.
My name. Yeah. Your name. What's your name this week?
My name's Jabez Oakes.
Okay. Closer to the microphone if you can, Jay.
Oh gosh.
I know. It's
fine before.
It was fine before. That's fine. That's fine.
Discussion.
Yes, we are having a discussion about your levels because you're too quiet. You're too quiet. This is the problem. This is what Arthur said a few weeks ago. You're too quiet and you're unlistenable when you're too quiet. So
listenable. I don't think he meant me personally.
Oh no,
he did.
He did. He said your contributions, though very thoughtful, were just unlistenable.
We're unlistenable. Now I'm reading it now. Yes.
And I think that's the stance we've got to take on it. Right.
Now?
You're speaking a lot better now. That's a lot better. Well done, you. Yeah. So we listened to basically Kemi Badenoch, using pretty much all 6 questions as opposition on the issue of Lord Mandelson. Old Mandy's back in the picture. Mandy's back in the picture because of allegations of his closeness with Jeffrey Epstein. Is this what's the story here, Joe?
I'm not fully abreast of the story, but allegedly, and this is what Badenoch says in Parliament, is that Epstein has, I beg your pardon, Lord Mandelson has an association with a convicted paedophile, and he also continued to have negotiations or discussions after the fact that Epstein was confirmed to be involved in the shady and awful and clearly evil world of
Mr. Epstein,
sex trafficking.
Yeah.
Mr. Epstein, yes, not Lord Mandelson.
Not Lord Mandelson.
No, and I don't think Kemi Badenoch instigates that either. Again, this becomes an issue.
She did mention again his track record of having to resign from the former Labour cabinets twice because of inappropriate dealings.
Yes, absolutely. And there's various other issues as well. I mean, he was an EU commissioner, and there was issues with that in terms of the pension he received. I'm just reading through his sort of biography now. It's not a good set of history for someone who is our diplomat, our representative in our closest ally, as we're constantly told. And he, as I've said in the past about other people who even if they haven't done anything wrong, it looks like they may have done something wrong, he needs to resign. And I know it's becoming perhaps a feature of the podcast.
I mean, well, let's go back to last week's episode. You were the one who said in last week's episode that Angela Rayner needed to resign, and 2 days later she did. I mean, to be fair, most of people in politics said that her position was untenable. But what was the difference between when you said it to when she actually resigned? What was the tipping point?
Well,
And the
I
tipping point
suspect,
being you
yeah,
suspected,
I
and
suspect
then
that the issue which would be returned from the ethics advisor would be
yeah,
it's not to the high standards of the office, right? So even though she's done everything she can, she's been candid and whatever else, it still looks bad, which means she's got to go.
yeah.
And that was the conclusion essentially.
I don't know his name. The Tory MP who started off PMQs started off with a question saying, "Got a housing minister that's not paying housing tax. You've got," and he went through a whole list of reasonable comparisons. Do you think that this is a communications issue by the Labour Party, or is this just a deep-rooted issue of corruption within high-flying ministers there?
I wonder if this is an issue of realizing that the political class are far too separate from the real life of most ordinary British people. And I know that sounds quite convoluted and highfalutin, but if you look at
Well, the Westminster bubble.
well,
Is that
yes,
whole
and
concept of the
dying
Westminster
days of the
bubble.
Tory government were the same. The dying days of I'm saying,
But this
okay,
is
no,
it's just over 12 months into a brand new
yeah,
government, and these are normally the stories, like you just pointed out, in the dying days of a government. I mean,
yes.
there's another 4 years of this.
The
Is it?
astonishing thing is that you have to ask yourself, has this been just happening all the time, and we've now got the facilities in place to be able to catch it and hold people to account more easily than we could in the past? I mean, when Mandelson first resigned, it was a huge scandal, and it was unusual. It was regarded as unusual that he returned to politics after that. And now it's happening all the flipping time. It's absolutely astonishing the number of resignations which have resulted, high level resignations as well, not just
I mean, there's. I mean, on the as it was pointed out by Keir Starmer, there were members on the opposition when they were in government. They just ignored it. They didn't even bother resigning. They just.
Well, the
So
ethics advisor resigned. I think his response was good. He'd clearly prepared that response as one should. He knew that the and perhaps he's right. Perhaps the sort of scaling up of the ethical responsibilities of ministers means that we are going to get at first more people resigning. But yeah, it must be remembered in the context that under Boris Johnson, his ethics advisor resigned because it was so crap what was going on in the Tory government.
Okay. So anyway, then it is what it is. I mean, going back to Peter Mandelson, I mean, I see this is going to be a death of a thousand cuts again. I think it's going to be a new story now until he is removed or resigns himself again. And
Well,
the longer,
there's nothing good that can come out of it. I mean, I won't repeat what he says in his own defense because I find it absolutely astonishing. But there's an article in the Guardian where he's been speaking on a podcast about justifying his reasons for remaining friends with Epstein, And
after his conviction
Yeah.
for being a sex trafficker.
after his indictment,
So not conviction.
no.
So
I don't know the sort of ins and outs and the timeline. I mean, I'll just read out one thing he says, which I just find absolutely disgusting.
Go on.
Lord Mandelson said he never saw nor did Epstein offer any introductions to women. And it must be said, in many cases, these weren't women, these were girls, these were children, in the same way he had done for others. Perhaps it's because I'm a gay man, Lord Mandelson said, as the reason for that. So essentially what he's saying, and this is why you're right in that death of 1,000 cuts, no one wins out of this. No one can escape the conclusion, the inevitable conclusion. You know, like if what he's basically saying there is, oh well, I'm not, you know, involved in the more seedy side of Epstein's stuff, but only because of my sexuality.
So that was the only thing that
Absolutely astonishing, ambassador to say. You know, it's absolutely untenable.
isn't that excuse was basically, well, he didn't have he didn't have the right sweets in the shop for me,
possibly,
or the equivalent.
Yeah,
That
that's disgusting. You know, that's utterly deplorable.
Like I said at the top of the show, this is a stinky episode. This is allegedly, this is a very stinky episode, and you know, there's a lot of things that smell and stink of all sorts of vileness and corruption. Speaking of which, we've got a presidential visit. Is it later today or tomorrow? By Isaac Herzog, which was brought up in the House. So if we've got, he's the president of Israel.
He is.
Who's a part of the Labour Party in Israel, or was, I think, I seem to remember. So the leader of the SNP in the House, name excused, Flynn, Stephen Flynn. He brought it up, and he said, you know, he's got. At what point does the Prime Minister allow these people who are possibly going to be? Well, does he? No, he doesn't have any. Herzog doesn't have any claims from The Hague against him to arrest him, is there? He doesn't. And the little to and fro was basically, why are you letting this person into this country? To the Prime Minister coming back with, your idea of diplomacy is student politics and basically it's immature. Who's right?
Who's right? I think
who's right in that situation? You're letting in someone who has signed off on the potentially the murder of innocent people.
Well, that's the first thing.
On a wholesale scale, eh?
Yeah, the president of Israel is very similar to our head of state, which is the king. They don't necessarily have the operational parameters. The thing that Stephen Flynn refers to, which is absolutely correct, is Herzog's wholesale support of the collective punishment of Palestinians, where he basically said there are no innocent Palestinian civilians, which is, again, a horrific thing to say. It doesn't amount to a war crime, and we've gone through perhaps, I don't know.
Sorry, he said
that.
When I missed that,
he said, and this is what Stephen Flynn refers to in the House.
Yes,
he says that there is no such thing as an innocent. It was either Gazan or Palestinian civilian.
Oh, right, okay.
Sort of justifying the continuous bombing and collateral damage, for want of a better phrase, being conducted by the IDF. But in terms of him signing off on things or him making decisions on things, he doesn't have that role in Israel. But he's done everything but, you know, carrying out official action, as it were. You know, he's an interesting chap. He's the first Israeli prime president to have been born in Israel, which is, I just find that interesting. But there we go. But yes, he's a member of the Labour Party.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So is it student politics to not allow a person in that position to the United Kingdom? Is it as in, because the argument from the Prime Minister was basically, your ideas on how to treat foreign diplomats is no more than a student protest.
Well, I think student protests are necessary, aren't they? Even in the House of Commons. I think part of the reason we're a democracy is because the head of government and the head of state meets other heads of states and heads of government, however deplorable they are, and other sections of society complain about it. That's how it's meant to work. So I think both of them can be right. He gets to say, well, you're just doing student politics, and Stephen Flynn gets to say, well, you meeting him is absolutely deplorable. And I know it's unpopular to say, well, there can exist two truths in a situation, but it's the way of our democracy that the people in power have to do the thing that the people in power have to do, apart from be friends with paedophiles, and those who aren't in power get to decry that and say, well, that's not right. And we're going to come on to this, I think, where we talk about what's required in a democracy and people disagreeing with each other and protests, all that kind of stuff. But it's absolutely essential that Stephen Flynn said what he said in the House of Commons, where he can't be stopped, where he's free to say whatever he wants. And it's absolutely essential that the government reminds everyone, well, we do have to deal with difficult people. And one thing he said, which I found interesting, Stephen Flynn, was, why are you even, trying to meet with this person when he's going to ignore everything
you ask? Yeah.
And that's important, and that isn't student politics. That's reminding everyone of the games.
He did. Stephen Flynn. He did make the comparison. Said you wouldn't invite Vladimir Putin into number 10 with open arms. You would discuss these big diplomacy points at a neutral location. If there was going to be any diplomacy, I think that was one of his points as well. Anyway,
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, there is. Yeah. I mean, there is. I mean, yeah. That was one of the contributions. And also, did you notice? Talking about the big stinky episode, the big smelly episode that this is? Did you notice the big smelly stinky person in the house?
No.
Did you not? Did you not see?
I listened to it.
You listened. Oh, you should have watched it. So you should have watched the PMQs, because you would have noticed that the whole house was rammed. There were MPs everywhere. There were people standing on the stair cases and the stair passages, and crammed up against the front door and round the side of the chair and everything, except on the lower front benches of the on the government side. There was a member, an MP there, a member for North Durham, who was sat with at least two spaces either side of him. Nobody wanted to sit next to him. And I can only assume that that's because it was a very stinky, smelly sort of part of the house. And do you know who the MP for North Durham is? That would be...
Yeah, go on. I think
Luke Akehurst.
There we go. Yes, mistake.
And Akehurst was sat on the front bench. Well, not the front bench of the government, but the front bench down the road towards the door. And he had at least two spaces, a space or two at all times, either side of him. And it seemed like, well, I can only assume that he must have been stinky or smelly. Do you think that Luke Akehurst is stinky and smelly? And that's why nobody wanted to sit next to him?
I can think of plenty of reasons why people may not want to sit next to Luke Akehurst.
Allegedly.
No, I can think of actual reasons.
Oh, actual reasons?
Well, no, I've never found him a very pleasant person. I don't really like criticising people on their personalities. I think he's said things in the past which means I find him quite unpleasant. He's a very technocrat, sort of machinist, bureaucratic member of the Labour Party, and he's been involved in the NEC and all that kind of stuff before he became an MP in North Durham. I've no idea why they would afford him the space in the House. Again, what conclusion can you reach, David, except the one you've reached?
I mean, all I can see, all I visually see on the TV screen is that because it's at the point where the camera overlooks the house, the camera that looks at the two sides of the house, it's quite visible that he's in the bottom left-hand corner. You can clearly see him, but you can also clearly see that people are avoiding him. that other Labour MPs are avoiding.
And I don't want to undermine the joke at all.
Do you reckon? I know what you're about to say.
Okay.
Do you reckon that the seats are reserved?
Yeah, I mean there are prayer. There's the
Prayer.
whole
Yeah,
sit-
I don't
sit-
think so.
Put prayer cards in. Well, they get taken away if you're not there. So
Yeah, because being usually just
I have seen him use a cane in the house. I wonder if that's a factor, but it is a mystery and a bit strange in those situations.
David Blunkett brought a dog into the house and people didn't hide from it.
Yeah, I mean, you regularly see on the opposition front bench the golden retriever for one of the members of the house. I forget his name, and the golden retriever sits, out the way, and there's a lot of But yeah,
Anyway, that was just an observation. I just saw it, and I was every time. And the thing is, as PMQs was going on, there were people either moving further away or the gap was getting bigger. So I don't know what's if he smelt or is. I mean, if it does smell, if it is because of the smell of feces, maybe he needs to close his mouth. Right then, we'll move on. Anything else you want to talk about on PMQs? Did you observe anything or see anything
I
yourself, Jake?
Yeah, I thought the Peter Mandelson questions back and forth. It was absolutely shocking, the Prime Minister's response. It was I've never seen.
Oh, he got beaten up.
Oh, anyone who's normally as capable as him.
If anything, that is the first time I've seen Kemi Badenoch actually walk away from a PMQs as, the victor. You could almost call it.
Yeah,
because that was one. But I think I said to you last week, and I'll say again this week, she needs to stop slouching on the dispatch box. She looks like she's not got a. Well, I mean, it just looks like your back's weak, and if your back's weak, then what does that project? What kind of image does it project? Eh?
I don't care in terms of.
You don't care, as long as
she is of irrelevance.
Actually, one of talking about irrelevance. Nigel was there.
Oh God!
Well, Nigel Roundabouts was there.
Back in the country, as it were.
Oh, well, no, he's a part of our country, which we're talking about.
Our country.
Our country. We'll be admitting a new member of that after the break. The new member, a new immigrant into our country after the break. But yeah, Nige was there. Have you heard about these roundabouts as well? That left-leaning people who approach these roundabouts with all sorts of nationalistic graffiti on it are driving around them the wrong way. Driving around just all these cases where police are catching lefties driving around the roundabouts the wrong way. Supposedly they won't give a
bad joke.
No, they supposedly they. Will you let me get the punchline out?
Sorry, no.
Talking over me. Supposedly they won't give way to the right.
There we go.
My God, that was maybe need to work on a bit of time in there, Jay. But yeah,
so remote podcasting's difficult, isn't it?
Remote, yeah, because you're not this is difficult. We are in separate locations, divided by miles and miles and miles of beautiful Welsh greenery. But yeah. So I saw something that Mr. Nigel basically said during the week, because he was the criticism, and we said last week as well, he should be there. And you made the point of Dennis Skinner. He knew as a parliamentarian he should be present. He made the point, and this is probably why he's there this week, that because he has very limited amount of opportunities to speak, that he's just a whipping boy. So he doesn't like the fact that he has to sit there and the whole house refers to him as, as they do, rightfully, as they do. And then it happened again today. And he doesn't have the right to reply to PMQs. That if, as a leader of a party, he could respond in the same way as other party leaders, then maybe he'd sit there a bit often. But he's actually doing it. He's avoiding PMQs out of avoiding the embarrassment It's a literal political sort of strategy on its part. What do you think of that?
I think he needs to get a grip and realise that the reason he doesn't get to speak. Well, yeah, and stop. He has 4 MPs. Win more elections if you want to.
And his supporters would say that he will be.
Speak in the House of Commons, and also, well, great or not great, whatever. But he also needs to acknowledge. We all need to acknowledge that regardless of his inability to speak whenever he wants in the House of Commons, he has a television show
And TikTok and every other outlet.
every day of the week or whatever it is.
He could literally, I mean,
Every other.
he could literally walk out of PMQs. PMQs, to be fair. And add,
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's it. And he's not protected by privilege in the same way, but nor should he. And this is the, his power is not within the House yet. And this sort of, him not showing up because he doesn't have the same.
It'll be they've already started dropping in the polls. There's people sort of realizing now. Oh,
this is
right. And then I'm just on a little note. And when they see batster crazy members of their party, but at least I didn't dress up in theatrics. I don't know what was going on there with the party conference, but there you go. I think you did see that, yeah. I think that they had the idea that party conferences should be more like theatre shows. That it's the American way, yeah, and American influences and all that. Who does he think he is? Harold Wilson. Right, we'll end that section there. I'll come back after the break. We'll be talking about who is the new immigrant to our country. Section 13, and later on we will be talking about your party progress.
That's so strange. Yeah, burnt out.
Your party business.
Yeah.
And we'll all things your party later on. Right, we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Two Left Feet, the unofficial Your Party podcast. I'm your host, Dafydd Vaughan. Alongside the consigliere of the Two Left Feet, it is the former councillor. This is your bit, Jake.
Sorry.
I can't believe you did it again. Forgetting it. That's multiple times now. Unbelievable. Right.
It's become a thing though, and I have to do it each time because that's what it's approaching now. It's approaching a sort of like, that's what we have to do.
The thing is, the gap, the dead air that is there. I mean, your timing. Never mind it being the stinky episode, it's the mistimed episode. Right, just so, not to reveal the curtain or anything to the listeners, but this might be take 2 for this segment. Hopefully we don't have to do this again. We might have to, because we're working remotely today. We are having to rely quite heavily on the internet and its many sort of weird and wonderful ways. So we're might separate sections out a little bit smaller and put a few more breaks in just to make sure we've actually got segments in the can before moving on. So in this stinky episode, we are coming to our weekly segment that we started last week. So, it's only on its second week, but of Our Country, which is basically a little pen within a zoo somewhere that we can put all of these infamous political and public figures in with each other, and they could become immigrants in our country. And who this week are you going to allow to join the inaugural member of Our Country, which is the first immigrant, which is Nigel Farage? Who are you nominating this week, Jay, for Our Country?
Well, I think I see the sort of country slightly differently. I think it's a little island somewhere off in the distance.
You think it's an island?
Yeah, we can send.
I think there's been enough islands this week, isn't it? Surely.
Oh yeah, well, I would nominate the Right Honourable the ambassador to the United States, Lord Mandelson.
Lord Pete Mandy? Why would you want to put Mandy on the island?
I think.
Why would you put Mandy on the island with Nigel?
Well, you just gotta, they're old pals or whatever.
They're old pals.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. So Angela Rayner, is she not eligible to be on the island or in the zoo pen in our country? Is she not, especially given her week?
I think our country is completely arbitrary and ad hoc and discretionary, and sometimes you have a situation where you think someone's going towards the finish line, but then out of the blue, you get a silly comment or an abhorrent defense for your relationship with someone, and it blows the common denominator or the non-controversial scandal of underpaying tax out of the water. And I think so defend a relationship with a paedophile is one of those instances.
It's slightly different, yeah, on a different level and a different scale again. But should members and new immigrants into our country only be from the British Isles? Should they be international immigrants into our country? Should the likes of Donald Duntz not be a member of such a prestigious little pen in the zoo on an island somewhere with a tree in the middle?
He's in the running. We admit one person at a time. That's
We do admit it's a weekly thing, but I would worry that what would Donald Duntz and Nigel get up to if they were left alone in the pen with each other in our country?
We'll see how Lord Mandelson and Nigel get on, and friends to join them.
Well, I'm not saying. I mean, maybe old Donald Duntz might be a member and an immigrant into this. He might be going on a small boat into our country before long, but it's probably the case. Maybe given the week, we leave Donald for another time, and we go to this week's immigrant into our country is Lord Peter Mandelson. Well done, Lord Peter. Well done, Lord Mandelson, the newest member of our country, the newest immigrant. And yes, you did hear right. I did not get a sound effect for clapping or crowd cheering again because I couldn't be bothered. So there we go. So that's our new member of our country. Any thoughts on that, Jay, before we go to a small break and then into our next segment?
No, I think I've said everything I should say. I don't think there's anything else that needs to be said.
Excellent.
There you go. That's it.
There you go. That's all. That's as concise as always. Right, we're going to separate the podcast out a little bit because I mean, we've already said all of this before. I know, pulling the curtain back and revealing frilly undergarments as we are. But due to possible internet connections, I'm going to go to a small break now and make sure this is saved. And then we're going to come back with our next topic of debate, which is basically it's a cleanliness episode. It's stinky. It's covered in grime. We'll be right back to discuss Section 13 of the Terrorism Act right after this break. Hold on tight. Welcome back to the Two Left Feet, your unofficial, I was going to say Labour Party, your unofficial, your party podcast, or whatever the party's going to be called in months to come when conference is decided upon, which could be a little bit further away than we first anticipated, but we'll come to that in the next section. On this stinky, smelly episode of the Two Left Feet, we've got to talk about cleaning things up, scrubbing things down, getting all the stink out of the way, scrubbing the floors and scrubbing the walls, and especially scrubbing any graffiti off any judicial buildings. We can't have any, close to the bone pieces of art being expressed upon our national buildings. And that's why this week we have seen a Banksy come and go all in the space of 2 days. Jay, did you like the piece of art that was expressed upon the and where was it? It was the which building? It was the
Royal Courts of Justice.
Royal Courts of Justice, and that's where the Banksy art installation was put up for a whole 2 days before it was removed. And yeah, what did you think of that? Did you like it?
You shouldn't. It's a good image, and it's important that everyone remembers that how powerful the state is and what they can do, even if we hide.
A judge is waving a gavel over a protester's head.
Well,
under
judges don't have scavels in the UK, Dav, and that I'm annoyed at the image for its inaccuracies, but it's
annoyed with an image because a UK judge doesn't have a gavel. I've seen Rumpel of the Bailey. I'm sure he has a gavel there.
no.
I'm sure there's gavels.
It'll be accurate.
Okay, well there you go. I mean, what is it? Only auctioneers that have gavels?
Yep, only auctioneers and people who are silly.
People who are silly. There you go.
Yeah.
So
Judges can be quite silly as well, I must say. But yeah.
well, I mean, that might be your opinion, but I couldn't possibly comment. When it comes to we were talking, the subject that we sort of decided on this week was the Terrorism Act of 2000 and more specifically Section 13. We're seeing a massive increase in the arrests of terrorists in the past couple of weeks. Our terrorist quota has gone through the roof. There are terrorists everywhere, and they're all seemingly to be pensioners of a certain age who can't walk, or disabled people. They're all terrorists, Jay. They're all terrorists, and some of them have been terrorists twice, especially under Section 13 of the Terrorism Act. What do you feel in terms of the act itself? Is this act doing the job it was intended for?
The act is a consolidating act. It brings previous legislation that applied to Northern Ireland and sort of reforms it with relevancy to the time. You know, there was a predicted change to how terrorism was happening in the UK and across the world. It had a very high threshold to previous legislation as to what terrorism is and how these powers can be used.
Granny's holding up signs. Is that terrorism?
No, the holding up of signs in this context, or under Section 13, the displaying of articles in support of a prescribed organisation, or the publishing of images of such actions, is not terrorism in and of itself. It's powers that the police have to combat the encouraging of terrorism.
I have seen videos of people being arrested, including several doctors, nurses, disabled people, old people, people who you just think that you'd bump into a county fair, or a flower show, and they're being arrested as terrorists. So, you know, the government's telling me on one hand, these people are terrorists. They are an immediate threat to the safety of this country. And on the other hand, I'm being told that, well, actually, they're just conscientious people protesting something quite horrific. So, you know, what's right here? If the law has been intended to put terrorists away, surely these people are terrorists.
If you there was a video on YouTube from the declassified files, I think they're called, and they were talking about how this was predicted, this sort of misuse of the Terrorism Act in the original debates, the second reading of the bill, including mentions from Jeremy Corbyn and others, including those from Northern Ireland, who warned of how this sort of thing can alienate communities and make it difficult to sort of express your political views. At the time, the Secretary of State, Jack Straw, was very keen to say that these are extremely powerful things the government would be able to do, and therefore there should be strong safeguards to make sure it is never used to impact protest, including, and he says this, direct action being carried out at the time by people such as Greenpeace, on private property, on infrastructure projects, and it was acknowledged, and I've said this before earlier on in the podcast, a part of democracy is being able to say, despite you lot trying your best to run the country or whatever, I'm going to say that you're wrong, even though I'm not, I don't know the consequences of that and blah, blah, blah. You have a right to say in protest that what they're doing is not on, and you can do that in various different ways. And I don't want to comment on specific cases, but it seems to me that something's gone slightly wrong here in terms of
I mean,
the
it's
original intention of the act. And
slightly wrong. I think it's a little bit of an understatement on that. I think that the act itself has been bent and corrupted, and obviously added to. It's not just the original context of the act. It's also been amended about 6 years ago. Was it 5 or 6 years ago, by the Tories, which allow for these powers to be given to the police.
Well,
Um,
this is it. One concerning amendment was isn't actually section 13. It's section 12(1)(a), and this was added by the let me remind myself. It was added by. I haven't written down what it was added by. Oh yeah, the Counter-Terrorism and Border Security Act 2019, and what this subsection does, because originally the original Terrorism Act was very clear that it's not about expressing support for an organisation, it's about inviting support for an organisation. So if you're going to go about saying, well, you should all join this terrorism organisation that's been prescribed by the government, and you should all, join it, and you should all be a part of it, that was viewed as something that should be an offence. What the amendment does in 2019 is saying that if you express an opinion or belief that is supportive of the prescribed organisation, which is reckless as to whether a person would be encouraged then to also support it, that would be an offence. And that is an absolute departure from the original intention of the Act, which was to prevent increasing membership of terrorism organisations and to prevent the planning and organising of terrorism offences. And
has it worked
so,
though? Has it worked in the whole? Has it been a good act? Has it been well? Because I looked at a statistic the other day to show that over the last 20 years, arrests in terrorism were pretty much on a level, and then this summer has just seen an enormous spike in terrorist offences. So if it's been working for 20 years so far, why is it not working now?
I'm not sure. I think there's the Terrorism Act was meant to be used, and Jack Straw references this. When people start saying in this original debate, oh, well, this is going to be used to stop direct action and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, he said, no, it's actually for the other end of the scale, for organisations which are clearly dangerous and horrifying organisations, and they need to be proscribed to prevent them being able to operate in the UK.
Do you
Yeah,
think that sorry, that was just to sort of move the conversation on a bit. Do you think that now there are people who have been arrested twice, broken bail conditions, and are now they're in a little bit more legal bother than they were previously? They are now possibly facing 14 years in prison for breaking the bail conditions and being arrested again under the Terrorism Act. Do you think that this will result in a test case? Will a test case come through?
there's already cases going through. There's a case going through the High Court at the moment regarding the actual prescribing of the organisation concerned. I cannot see how there wouldn't be test cases on this. One concerning thing, and this is to do with the whole sort of shift recently into changing public order based acts and protesting acts to make it harder to protest. We've got the Police Crime Sentencing Courts Act 2022, which amends the Public Order Act 1986. We've also got the Public Order Act 2023, which is regarded as a chilling piece of legislation by various quarters, including the Joint Human Rights Committee in Parliament. and the issues they're tied together in that sense, in terms of, if a government is going to start using terrorism legislation for the purposes of regulating people's right to protest, that is again, as you say, it's moving into a different zone of how a state is behaving
If
from a time 20 years ago when there was a clear distinction between the two sort of things, if that makes sense.
if these test cases are going to go through, as we suspect they possibly will, and the court, I mean, hypothetically now, if the court finds in favour of the protesters and say that the application of this section of the Terrorism Act does not apply in this sort of scenario, that creates judicial law, doesn't it? There's a, you explain it.
Well,
So
you're sort of getting into the realms of if the court felt that the only way that would happen, I can imagine, again, I'm speaking hypothetically, is if the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, High Court felt that what was happening in the police using their powers and the courts using their powers, if they contravened the Human Rights Act, right? So this is about whether the Convention on Human Rights, there'll be Article 10, freedom of assembly, Article 5, right to security and liberty, Article 6, the right to fair trial. It will be contending as to whether this use was lawful in terms of the Human Rights Act. And then you get into the sort of territory of, well, would you have to sort of make a declaration of incompatibility where
well, surely this is what the House of Lords was meant to do on examining this legislation before it went through.
well,
we keep getting told that that's the purpose of the House of Lords.
well, the House
and
of
all
Lords
these
can't stop legislation.
can't stop, but
Where
it could have been pointed out.
Well, they are. I mean, the recent Public Order Act, which is much more onerous in terms of curtailing people's right to protest. The legislative history of that particular bill involved, nearly half a year of ping pong battles, as it's called, between the two houses over the restriction to new police powers, which include the right to stop and search without suspicion, which is in certain cases, which is astonishing.
Scary.
Yeah, but and when you see these different pieces, and I don't want to go into too much detail because this podcast will turn into a lecture. When you piece,
And we wouldn't want that now, would we?
when you piece all of these different pieces of legislation together, and you see how the police are using them, it does give pause for thought, and you start thinking, well, maybe this act passed 20 years ago needs to be, sort of restrained in some way. And that's not speaking against the Secretary of State for prescribing the organisation. I don't want to make comment on that. And that's not disparaging the police for the actions they've taken.
Are they just following orders?
Well, the rule of law is important. And if Parliament follows its processes and procedures, which it has done, and it prescribes an organisation, it would be more worrying for the police not to enforce the law than for it to enforce it. The police enforcing a bad law within reason, obviously, there are human rights implications to everything the police do. If they decided to not enforce a particular law because they were against it, then that could cause problems as well. So the police are between a rock and a hard place. The thing that concerns me is the complete lack of acknowledgement of why this is happening. I mean, we have members of Parliament in an urgent question on Monday saying, "Oh, we didn't realise the effect that prescribing this group would have." Which is astonishing and makes you think, why are you here? Sort of thing. But then you've also got the Minister of State, Dan Jarvis. I'm not sure if he's a Minister of State, but that's it's of irrelevance to me. Saying, well, the UK has an absolute right to protest, when I've just described several acts of Parliament passed recently, but also in the 80s and the 90s, which clearly demonstrate that we don't have the absolute right to protest in this country, and we probably never have done. We have to acknowledge that the country is always a balancing act when it comes to protest and when it comes to ensuring public order, if you like, or the king's peace. And that's a careful...
Wouldn't want to cause a nuisance, no.
Well, this is it. I mean, the creation of the public nuisance is a whole other plethora of discussion that we could have. But yes, this is sort of, it's one of those sort of legal quandaries where you think, well, obviously...
Just sort of moving the conversation on a little bit. So obviously there's going to be cases being brought forward, possible test cases where it's going to be quite interesting to see what's going on. If hypothetically the courts find in favour of the protesters and they deem them not to be terrorists, what implications does that have in terms of their personal lives? So the personal lives of someone who has been arrested as a terrorist, who's then found not guilty, do they have a right to an apology from the government or compensation? And if so, how much does that cost?
Well, very recently there was a case that this is analogous, but it's relevant. A case of a gentleman who was released from prison after it was demonstrated that he could not have committed the offence that he was convicted of. It's Nicholson, I think his name is. Apologies for not remembering the name. And it was a massive miscarriage of justice. He'd been in prison for a very, very long time for a crime he could not have committed. And in terms of compensation, the question that was before the Court of Appeal was it the state's fault? I have to be careful here in terms of getting the sort of test right. Was it the fault of the state that this person ended up in prison for all this time? Or was it just the complete inadvertence of the system? So the difference is should the state have known, or should the courts have known, or whatever, that this person couldn't have committed this offence? Or was it open season and it was just an error of the system that this person ended up in prison for?
I think in this contest, I think there's the argument would be there's enough voices saying that this is wrong.
Yes,
there's enough people to know.
So that's one.
Even the debate in Parliament as it was being prescribed was this is going to cause problems. So
and I think when enough people are saying, even if you're like me and more sort of not passive but more neutral or sort of a wait and see type person, you could see that they were going, and I'm saying this now as well, I'm not saying it's wrong or right to prescribe Palestine action. I'm not saying it's wrong or right to arrest 1,600 people, but clearly something has gone wrong. And when something has gone wrong, you need to reflect and look and say, oh dear, well, perhaps we need to look at this again. So when a Minister of State stands up in Parliament and says, in response to MPs expressing that this is wrong and something, so there's an issue going on here, and they just say, oh, well, we're happy with what the police are doing, we're happy with the arrests that have been made, we're happy that the law is being enforced, that, these guys make the law, they should be allowed to reflect on whether someone's messed up somewhere. And considering the original debate on the Terrorism Act, these concerns were raised well back then.
26 years ago.
There have been cases since where the courts have had to say this is not...
Including one Jeremy Corbyn. One Jeremy Corbyn sat at the back benches and he did make these comments.
Well, did you know, and we can finish on an interesting fact.
Oh, go on, let's finish on an interesting fact. Why not?
The third reading of the bill of the Terrorism Act, before it goes to the House of Lords,
yes,
which is the final chance,
and before Royal Assent.
Yeah, and this was a very decisive vote. It was 210 votes against, 1 vote against, and we must remember in terms of...
Sorry, say that again. You confused me there. What were the numbers?
So the ayes were 210.
Right.
And the noes were 1. So one person...
How does a third of the... How does a third of Parliament get... Because that's not even a majority vote.
No, it doesn't have to be, because it's those present who vote, not the whole House.
I mean, such a big bill like that, I'd have thought.
No, well, it's a foregone conclusion in many
And
ways.
let me take a guess at who voted no.
Well, here's the thing. So, in terms of House of Commons calculus, there's also the two tellers. So there's actually 3 no's
Yes.
against the bill. You can have a guess at who the 3 were if you want to.
I'm going to say Tellers John McDonald
Yes.
and Diane Abbott.
No. Jeremy Corbyn.
Jeremy Corbyn was a teller, and
Yep.
the no was... Oh, who would have been back in the day?
He has
Go
passed
on.
away now, sadly. I think. If he hasn't, I'm very
Tony
sorry.
Benn?
It was Paul Flynn.
Paul Flynn? Oh, okay, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and he has spoken out on many occasions on sort of actions of the state and making sure that, things are restrained. I think it's very, very sad that the words Jack Straw used at the time, which were very clear that this act is about enhancing police powers to combat terrorism. I wonder what he's thinking now, seeing it not being used.
Right. Okay, we'll have to end it there, Jay, because Robot Voice is coming back in. Right, we'll end that segment. If you want to have a comment on anything that we're discussing today or in future, blah, 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 contact us on Facebook, Two Left Feet, the unofficial Your Party podcast, on YouTube, any of the episodes up there, make a comment there, or Podbean, or email us at labourpod@gmail.com. We will change that email in good time, but at the moment it's still LabourPod. Right, we'll be back with Your Party news right after this break. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Two Left Feet, the unofficial Your Party podcast. Here on the 10th of September 2025. I'm your host, Dafydd Vaughan, and I'm joined by the co-host of the most.
Oh, it's too early, bollocks. Sorry. That was too early of an accent. I was so.
Oh my God! How do you go the? How'd you go the other way? How'd you go the other way? How did you?
Well, just for the listeners, everyone.
Well done, Jay.
Dav gave me nearly a proper telling off about not saying my name on time.
Not a pretty telling on. I just said name it early.
Yeah, nearly a proper.
That was so wrong.
Far too ready.
Unbelievable. Can't tell you're a public orator. Oh, right. Okay. We're in the home straight. We're on the Your Party news section of the show. So we're going to talk about what's coming up for Your Party, and we're going to start off with upcoming events as collated by Your Party supporters group. So tonight, actually, in 10 minutes' time as I record, so you're going to miss this, is the Rossendale organisers meeting in Rossendale. Tomorrow, so the 11th of September, Your Party Sittingbourne and Sheppey inaugural meeting. That's Castle Connections. Tomorrow again at 7:30, same time, is Crew and Nantwich meeting at the YMCA Crew Social Enterprise. Monday, 15th of September, the inaugural meeting of the Clwyd area, so that's the northeast area of Wales, in the Daniel Owen Community Centre in Mold, Wythgrug. That's our one. So come on Monday. Wednesday, 17th of September, the Monday it's 7 o'clock start, by the way. Wednesday, 17th of September, 7:30, open discussion about Your Party from the Baptist Church Hall, St. George's Place in Canterbury. So that's Canterbury on the 17th of September. 20th of September, the Saturday, is Darlington and District Your Party Network meeting. So that's the Darlington Friends Meeting House at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday, 20th of September. Thursday, 25th of September at 7 p.m, Your Party Brent in Colkhill Community Centre. Thursday, 30th of September, 7 p.m, Your Party Public Meeting. Event is hosted Stevenage. So this is Stevenage. Thank you for hiding the name of your group. The Friends Meeting House on Cutty's Lane, Stevenage. Well done to them. And I think that's all of the upcoming events as listed and collated by your party supporters group. Thank you to Paul. Is it who's the admins on this? This is Arthur, isn't it?
Arthur.
This could be Arthur, I think. Where do you go on here? Oh, I don't know. There you go. But then thank you for that group thank you for that group for putting those things together. Any news from your side of it for your party, Jabez?
It's all
Have you found anything interesting?
There's another. I was listening to various clips and podcasts from various different people, including the new leader of the Green Party, Belansky.
Oh yeah.
And they're all talking about your party, which is good. I think the general emphasis and idea is that we're still very early stages. We're talking about the big things and the minute organizational things, and how allying with other parties in whatever that means is important, and not just shutting the door on being, friends across the aisle, as it were. I don't think that means sort of stepping to one side in when elections are happening. I think our argument there ought to be seeking to utilize proportional representation wherever possible, and where that doesn't exist, campaigning for it. But again, in terms of the meetings that are coming up, very exciting, good spread still, and looking forward to the open discussions that we are having, continuing to be open, and we continue to be an open.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of discussions to be had. I think it's all formation and structure at the moment. There's also another meeting on Monday, 15th September at 6 p.m. at Pontypridd Deaf Centre. It's the I'd imagine it's Pontypridd that are doing your party's meeting from the Pontypridd Deaf Sports and Social Club. So there's that one. Also, big thank you to Graham Hogg, who you might see in a couple of the supporters group on Facebook. He has created for Wales. England is yet to get this far, I think. Has created a map of all of the groups and contact details for the constituency or community groups for your party. You can see this map, and there's a PDF with active links available on certainly the Wales supporters, your party Facebook page. That map is doing its rounds on places online. But if you want to see the original, if you go to the Anglesey Bangor constituency Facebook page for your party, the update version is there, and organizer Graham Hogg, who has taken the lead on this work, and a big thank you to him for doing it. It's a very very informative map of Wales. So if anybody listens to this wants to join one of the groups in your Welsh areas and Welsh constituencies, there is a map and contact details there for you. England-wise, I think it's going to be slightly more regional. But then this is it has to be. You said this last week. It has to be, and there's conversations happening. It will come together. But the only thing that I have heard as a rumor is that maybe November is a ambitious target to hold a conference. It might be looking more like February, which in England is fine because there's a couple of years before general election, so that's not too much of a pressure point. But in Wales there is, because next May, and is Scotland next May as well? I assume so. I think they work on the same timescale. There are elections here, and it looks like, based on the current polling, it would mean that Reform would take the control of the Senedd, and their only key policy for the Senedd is to abolish it. So there is a more pressing matter in Wales to get through, to try and get candidates in, hopefully. Any other news To be honest, I haven't really been. I've been involved quite a lot with organisational stuff this week rather than looking at anything else in your party, and I don't think there's been massive amount of news other than attend meetings, find out about your meetings, and get in contact with organisers and start forming constituency groups, which is, I mean, again,
With what mandate, Dav? With what
mandate? Well, the mandate. Well, this is this has been a thing amongst organisers. I would say facilitators more than organisers. Is that at some point, yes, there needs to be a group of people making decisions based on local issues and and more localized party sort of structure. But to get there, there's going to have to be a moment of people just getting on with the work, and this is that moment. This is the time we're in. What I'd say is for a few of the groups, if you feel like maybe you're going beyond your personal comfort zone, set up a constituency party as soon as possible. Get as many members in as soon as possible, and set up interim constituency committees. That's the only sort of logical way, personally, I can see that you get through there without having to constantly question yourself on whether you have the mandate to do so. So I don't know if that's fair, Jay. I'm not too sure.
I think there's two ways of looking at it. There is that way. I think it's important. I mean, again, it one of the reasons I think that the conference, there is a suggestion the conference can't take place immediately is because, or more quickly, is because it's become very apparent that people want a bottom-up structured party rather than a top-down structured party. Until you have the mechanisms in place to allow bottom-up structures to form, you have to rely on sort of what I call lineage mandate, which is, Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn have said they want to start a party. They have been in contact with people, other people have been in contact with people, and there's that thread of connections to sort of organise meetings. And that's the mandate. The mandate exists within the interrelationships of the original declaration.
Yeah.
Where you can go from there, and this is sort of another way of doing it, is if you have a meeting, a public meeting, and you're all of the same mind, declare yourselves and say, we are the group for this area, for your party. And if you get contests on that, on people saying, well, no, I'm the group, and that can be sorted out. But this is the messy stage. I mean, one of the reasons I'm reassured that there's not much news is that we're in the busy bee phase. We're in the phase where we're actually trying to organise things and bring things together. And there are those wider discussions going on. There are those sort of, where technical terms are being used and sort of philosophical views are being expressed. But when it comes down to it, we all have to get in the room and have a conversation, and someone has to book the room. So that's your mandate. Your mandate is consequence, and your mandate is cause and effect. Your mandate is we live in a country where you have to book rooms to have conversations. So that's your mandate, and
go from there.
And go from there. And that's okay.
Right, if anybody out there has any Your Party news or wants to come onto the show and have a discussion, maybe you're an organiser yourself or anything really, or your party, contact us, make a comment, tell us what you're doing. We'll advertise it here, whether it's a meeting or anything else going on, and hopefully we'll make some progress over the next couple of weeks. There are other different meetings going on. I know there's organising meetings in Wales, or October 25th, I think, is a date we've been told to reserve. That something's going on there. But in the meantime, I think we're done for this week. I think it's been quite a long episode, longer episode than I certainly anticipated to start off with. How do you feel about it, Jay? Should we say goodbye for this week?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know if we're going to be here next week. I hope that we are. Hopefully there'll be something. Things might be happening this week. I don't know what's the possible case. We will let you know how busy things are getting at the moment. Hopefully there will be some sort of podcast here next Wednesday.
Could be.
B&Q. There should
I
be.
think we ought to say there is one unless we tell you of
Otherwise stated, yes.
Yeah.
I think so. And of course, thank you for everybody who's listening. We've had really great uptake on the people have come back to us after our 4-year hiatus, and I know all the people who've started listening again, and new people who start listening, new people start subscribing, and listening wherever you get your podcast from. We do thank you, and hopefully, this is an engagement sort of kind of podcast. We do want people to come back and challenge some of the views and challenge some of the things we say, because that's how it works. That's how it works, people. You've got to get involved. So please get involved in the podcast where you feel, even positive comments. Be like John did. That's a nice positive comment. We'll thank him for it. But we'll get around to that. Right then, I'm waffling, and we need to get going because time's moving on. Time is fleeting, but not for very much longer. I'm singing as I sang his in, so I might say it's a singing week. We can't have conferences without singing now. You've got to be a performer. You've got to be a stage actor. There's got to be sparkles and all sorts of things going on to be.
As long as you get your timing right.
So long as you, well, yeah, that's true. Right then, so for this week on the Two Left Feet, the unofficial Your Party podcast, I've been Dafydd Vaughan. That's your bit, Jay.
Open Jabez Oakes.
How do you get this so wrong?
Oh, because I'm not Ronnie Corbett. I don't know what's happening. I don't.
Oh, see, this is the thing. You've got to be, like I said, we've just said, you've got to be more of a showman and a show person and an actor in anything politics these days. You've got to have that little time in that sort of, that inclination towards presentation to the public. But there we go. We will leave it there. Right then, all you humanoids out there, see you next week. Same time, same place, same podcast channel. Bye-bye.
Bye.